Hi, I'm Hannah Brown, and welcome to Better Tomorrow. My absolute favorite thing to do is have a heart-to-heart talk with my new friends and my best friends, where we sit down and talk about all the things like relationships and love, faith, and self-care. And of course, the little things as well, like the struggle to figure out what to eat tonight. All in all, I really want to ask, how am I better today than yesterday? And bring artists, entrepreneurs, and friends along on the journey. So join me on the journey, will you? Hi, y'all. Welcome back to Better Tomorrow. We have Kaitlyn Bristowe here, and I'm so excited just to catch up.
I know. I'm going to forget there's cameras.
Because we saw each other for the Super Bowl. You had a party at your new house, which, by the way, is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Are you so proud of that house?
Yes. And there's people there right now doing, they're like styling the shelving on either side of the TV. Because I always think I know what I'm doing. And then somebody comes in and does it better. And I'm like, what was I thinking? I've like got like trinkets everywhere. And like, I don't know. I'm not a good stylist. So I have people that I hire. And I'm like, but now I'm broke. But yes, I love it.
Okay, that's the thing. So, I used to do that before I was on the Bachelorette. We would go in and do like decorating. And I'm telling you, the shelves will add up. I remember one time I did this house and it was not a big house. And by the time we had done all the little trinkets in like 2 rooms, it was like $10,000 of trinkets. And I'm like, ooh, they going to be, they're probably not going to be okay with this.
I know.
They ended up doing it and they ended up keeping it because it looks so good. It feels so bad. You're like taking things away and it's like, it just doesn't look as good.
That's the whole thing. They already set it up and I was walking out the door and I was like, it's perfect. They're like, it's 10 grand.
Yeah, it's 10 grand.
It wasn't 10, but I was like, my jaw dropped when they told me. And I was like, what? And they're like, books are expensive. I'm like,
books.
Can't you hit up the Dollar Tree for a book?
I've been thinking about that. Like, I feel like there should be a way that you could have the books that you have, like get some thrift store books and some type of cover that we could put on. But even the books that you can buy like that are $20,
I guess
$50.
It is crazy. Like, I'm like, we don't need Tom Ford up there. Like, I am okay with it being like Goodnight Moon. Have you read that book? That was a childhood favorite.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like, I don't need it to be Chanel.
But
does it look cool?
It looks good. It looks good.
But yeah, I have like imposter syndrome in my house.
What do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, what am I doing in a big house by myself? It's kind of like sad, but awesome.
Yeah, because I got you a little housewarming present and
it's in my office on my main chair.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I'm obsessed.
I was thinking about you like buying this house for yourself because it's so beautiful. And I feel like it really just is a manifestation of all the hard work that you've done.
Yes.
And especially like this new chapter of your life, like having your own home, living there by yourself. Like I found this pillow on Revolve that is like a share quote.
Yeah.
Where she like is talking to her mom. She's like, you need to find a rich man. And she's like, Mom, I am a rich man. And I was like, this is so
Which is also one of my favorite quotes. So when you
I didn't know that.
Yes. And I'm like, I was obsessed with that gift.
Oh, I'm so glad. I didn't know that, but it just made me think of you. I'm like, I have to get
Which
this.
I love that you think of a share quote like that and think of me.
I did. I know. I really do though. I feel like you've just like really created this beautiful life for yourself. But I think that's also come from a lot of hard work.
I often think like sometimes people are like, you're so lucky. And I'm like, no, I actually moved mountains to get here.
Like I love that. Actually, we were talking before we started rolling, but talking about my therapy.
Yes.
And my new therapist has been like life-changing. And she even says this about relationships. People say, oh, it's just like, you're just made for each other. Or you were just made for this. And it's like, no, I worked for this. I built this.
Yes.
And that actually feels so much more empowering when it's like, no, this isn't just like some fairy tale happen. And this just like, yes, I do think like the universe and like God can like definitely, whatever's meant to happen will happen. But it also takes a lot of work for yourself in building it. And I feel like that's what you've done. It's like, I've built this for myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would celebrate having a 6-bedroom house to yourself.
Well, I do, but I also like find it I get confused because part of me is like, this is sad. I should be building a life with somebody and I should be in here with like at this point in my life, I pictured a family and like there's all these empty bedrooms. But then on the other hand, I'm like, bitch, you did this. Like, so it's confusing because it's so empowering, but I get sad that I'm not building a life there with somebody. But again, like it's so hard because I don't want to build a life there with anybody.
Exactly. And also, I would like challenge that because I think you are building it. It just hasn't been on the timeline that maybe you thought it was going to be or what other people think it should be.
Right.
But you're going to fill those rooms and you're going to have somebody there.
Even if it's with golden retrievers, I'll fill them.
I mean, how awesome would that be?
It'd be a dream.
If each room, each dog had a room.
Well, it's
so cool.
It's so funny because I'm like, one room is already going to be a podcast room. I have a manifest room I'm building.
Shut up.
With like
what is that going to be like?
There's like pods you can get where you go in. It has like certain lighting and like meditation, visualization music, and you like lay in the pod. And then I'm gonna have like a journaling station, and then like a pillow station where you just go and like do a little meditation or yoga or something, and then you get in the pod.
Okay, I'm also going to suggest that you have group like sound bath things in the room and stuff, and I would like to join.
You absolutely are invited. That's a great idea. I love, how, were you with Adley one time? Did you guys do the like wine and whiteboard? I was in on that. I don't remember where you were. You were gone or something.
We were gone. But was it this like,
yes,
this about a week or 2 or 3 ago? I don't even know time.
Yes.
But yeah,
but I don't either. But it's so cool to hang out with good people who want the same things, who are on the same like frequency in life and build each other up to get there because like you lived in LA for a while. Did you feel like it was dog eat dog, like climbing the ladder?
Totally. Yeah. And I always say LA, which I loved my time in LA.
Yeah.
But it felt like everybody was on their own island.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here,
it feels like community here.
There's such good community.
Yeah, I know.
Even though I'm going to tell you, this is my first winter here.
Oh.
And
you struggling?
I'm not okay.
You're not cut out for this kind of
life.
And
it's weird because I'm from Alabama, but I think because I was in LA for 4 years and I didn't really realize just like the sun was always a part of my life. And like, we're just always like walking around. And for 4 years, just got totally used to that. And then January, February hits here and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The sun comes out one day. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm a little depressed, but I'm not fully depressed. It's just the sun.
I know. It's a whole thing. I'm Canadian, so like this weather is balmy for me. I'm like warm. But the sun thing is it definitely makes a difference.
Because that's the thing. Like my friend Nora, I don't know if you met Nora.
Yeah, I met Nora.
She's from Alaska, but she's like in Alaska, it's
sunny every day.
It's sunny every day when it's bright. And she moved here and she's like, this has been rough. I'm like, I know.
It is.
But I just went to Mexico and I was like, oh, that's all I needed. I just need a little hit of sun.
I know. Isn't it crazy how much of a difference it makes?
Yeah.
I don't even realize it. And then like all of a sudden I'm like in a hole in my bedroom, like with the blinds down, crying. And then the sun comes out, I take the dogs out. I'm like, oh. Everything's amazing. Yeah.
I'm actually
like, I go from 0 to 100 real quick with the weather.
But we've been talking about it. We talked about it a lot when we were in Mexico because I'm like, oh, I think I'm a better person. He's like, totally. But like, think of the community. totally
yes,
are.
Wow.
Like it really is like night and day. But the community that we have here is so awesome. And we're just building it. Like, I feel like every month we bring somebody else new into our life and that's been awesome. And it's not dog eat dog. I feel like everybody is like, how can I help you?
Yes.
How can we network? How can we build each other up? It's really awesome. And especially that crew.
Yes. I think it's so interesting too because I've spent some time in LA. I've spent time in New York. I'm Canadian. And this feels like a Canadian, like small town with good people.
Just sweet. Yeah.
And like I had never experienced terrible people until going on TV.
Right.
And it was such a shock to the system because I'm like, wait, you're not all just wanting what's best for me and you're only in it for yourself and now it's a competition instead of a collaboration. Like I'm confused.
Mm-hmm.
And people ask all the time, why Nashville? And I'm like, it feels like a safe, sacred space with good community.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still go do the LA thing. I can still go to New York and get the interviews and do all the thing. But then I get the hell out of there and come back to my place where I feel calm.
How did you choose Nashville?
A man named Sean Booth I got engaged to.
Okay, so was he already here?
Yeah, he was already here.
Okay.
So when we got engaged, he came to Canada for a bit. And then I was like, I've always wanted to live in Nashville. And so I just did.
Because was it because you were like in music and you always thought about Nashville? Like
no, I truly my sister had been to Nashville a few times and she was like, it reminds me of like a big city, but with small town people. And I was like, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love live music and I love country music. And so I was like, I think I could get down with Nashville. And so when I came here, I just fell in love with it.
Well, I was the same way. I was like, being in Alabama, my parents are like 3-4 hours away. And I knew I wanted to like move somewhere. And I was like, Nashville just seems like it's close, but there's like so much going on. There's still a lot going on there, but also has that small town vibe.
Yeah.
And when we were in LA, that just kind of happened after the show. Honestly, I don't know if I've talked about this, but like I was so not okay after that show.
Yeah. No kidding.
I did not want to come back home.
Yeah.
So I got the producers to find me an apartment.
Yeah.
And I just like didn't come back. I came back home for like a day or two to get like the few things I had.
Yeah.
And just moved.
I remember because like I came, when was that I came? It was quite like quickly after the show. I came and spent some time with you at your apartment.
Kaitlyn, I'll never forget your podcast was the day that I found out about the whole like whole Jed debacle.
Yes.
And I got to the place you were like we were recording and like couldn't go up the stairs. Was like so distraught.
Totally understand.
And I'm like, I can't do this. And I called the executive producer and I'm like, I what am I going to say to her right now? I don't even know how to like
totally get it.
What's happening.
I was like,
it would have been a great day for you because you would have got like very raw emotions, but like I couldn't even do it.
I felt terrible because I was like, obviously different experiences what happened. Like I was happy with somebody and like in love, but still in such a dark place. And there was times where I could not show up. Like it was crippling anxiety for me.
Yeah.
So to experience what you had to with somebody doing what they did to you, to come into a podcast no, I would never expect you to do that.
But yeah, you came to my apartment after and like it just I started to don't get me wrong, I sometimes like miss it. I loved being there. Like I loved the honestly it was just the weather and being by the beach.
Well, you were so close. It was just like a hop, skip, and a jump down to the beautiful sunset ocean.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
It's like thank goodness for teams.
I couldn't have anything that I have without my team. I just show up and talk and be myself, and I just have the good people around me.
I do have a question about like you've obviously like had podcasts, you've created business for yourself, just created like overall just like this brand, lifestyle brand. When you went on The Bachelor, Bachelorette, I feel like you were very like totally yourself, but did you think, oh, like this could be like a jumping star?
Jumping stone? Is that what it is?
I don't know the word.
Leapfrog. Stepping stone.
That's what it was. Jump start or stepping stone. Wow.
Yeah, it's whatever you want. It's a Hannah-ism.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the goals that you had, like, or did you have any goals? Or you're like, I'm just going to try this, see what works.
Well, that was my mentality. I'm going to go and see what works. But I didn't know what Instagram and like, I didn't know that could turn into such a business and career and empire. I had no idea because I went in at the time where Instagram was like just, you were starting to get followers on there.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could get paid for things. So I wasn't going on being like, I'm turning this into a business. But I went on truly being like, I'm going to build a name for myself. If I fall in love, great. Like what a bonus. But I'm going to go on. I'm just going to like completely be myself and see what comes from it. And if I happen to like get a job from it, or like I used to want to interview people on red carpet.
Yeah. Was that the dream?
Yeah.
Then.
Like I wanted to have my own radio show. Like I just thought like, who knows?
You would be, I mean, obviously you're great at a podcast, but radio, you have a great radio voice.
I do?
I think so.
Oh, actually I am one of those weirdos. Like when I hear myself on headphones, I'm like, that ain't bad. Yeah. But if I hear it back, I'm like,
yeah, no, I think it's great.
But yeah, I just went on being like, I hope something comes from this. And if I also fall in love, how cool.
What is your relationship with that show now?
Great.
Okay, that's good. Yes. I'm feeling like I'm getting on the great train now.
It took me a few years.
Yeah.
It's so good. I feel like are there one or two that I think about and I'm like, there's a special place in hell? Yes. But like the majority in the overall show and everything, I'm like, it's all laid out there in the contract. And like, it really is this well-run business, and it worries me for people that it can really screw some people up. Like, it can really turn some people dark, and there's been suicides in the franchise. Like, it can really, like, if you have mental health issues, it can really be a dark place. But my relationship with the show is so good because I am now in a place just full of gratitude for it. And I'm like, you know, obviously I wouldn't have everything I have, but it doesn't excuse some things that they do overall.
Totally.
But like, I've like mended so many fences with some producers. I've had really honest conversations with them.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a while there, they were like, no, you can't have that person on your podcast. And no, you can't do this. And I'm just like, come on, help me help you. Like, we all can work together. Like, the Love is Blind will just go rogue and they can go on anyone's podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Bachelor, you need to do that too. Like, let people talk, and like, it'll get more people talking.
Totally.
I just feel like I can like have a good banter with a lot of them now. And I respect it.
I do too. Do you actually feel like you can find a person though on the show?
Oh, yes, I do. That's going to be like the shittiest foundation to start on.
Yes.
Like,
that's kind of my thought. I was like, of course you can find people.
Yeah.
But that's a really tough situation to be in. Actually, my therapist should literally like, she should have a seat right here.
I've thought about that with mine too, because I bring her up so many times. I have thought about that.
But she actually pointed out something to me the other day, because we haven't really even gotten to like that part of my therapy of like all the shitstorm of the past
that'll be fun.
4 or 5 years. But like, even the day that you get engaged, that you're breaking up with somebody,
I know,
right before, that type of feeling is really intense. And then you're supposed to be able to just like,
and it's not like you have a down, like it's literally like, okay, that next limo's pulling up. You're like, what?
All right, let's fix your makeup.
Yeah, get it together.
You got it? You ready?
Yeah,
okay.
Let's go get engaged. Yeah, it's bizarre.
It's so bizarre because like, you can't actually, even though it's like set up to be this beautiful moment, and of course, like, you know, you're in this crazy, beautiful, tropical, romantic, whatever type place. You just broke up with somebody. Like, how do you switch on a different emotion? And that's also kind of like tainting the day a little bit. So you're starting off with that.
And it's
that's really tough
for everybody.
Yes.
Like, I'll never forget. There's a Family Guy episode on The Bachelorette, and it's so funny because at the end, Brian the dog is so in love with this Bachelorette, and at the end the cameras turn off and it's this whirlwind, and she goes, well, it was great working with you, Brian, and she like walks off, and he's like, what? None of that was real? And I did that to Sean when we got engaged, because he always joked like, this isn't real, like, this is somebody's gonna like prank me, or the contract's gonna be like, this was a job. And so we got engaged, and then we walked off, and I was like, well, it was great working with you, Sean. And I like walked away. But I'll never forget, he sat in one of these chairs, I think, and said that obviously wasn't a real relationship. And that broke my heart, because I was like,
that's not true.
That was so real to me. And I couldn't wait to send Nick home. Like, there was so much leading up to that, but I was so clear in that moment that I was like, I can't wait to be with Sean.
Yeah.
But it was so tainted because Sean now knows.
That's the mentality he had going into it.
Right.
Because like, the guy coming up, unless you just like point blank, and even I think if you like point blank told him it's him, there's a doubt already in their head.
Yeah. Something could have
that something can change.
Second. Yeah.
And so they're not like like, they might be confident in how they feel, but not confident in how you feel. And that's not really what an engagement is fully about.
Right. It is interesting because even like that relationship to me was so real, but the engagement still seemed so, you know, manufactured for television, that I always wanted a second proposal.
Yes.
But it was interesting because even like when Jason and I got engaged, there was cameras, and I was like, oh, it's happening again.
Yeah.
Like, it's like scary.
It's scary because like, you can't. I feel like we both do a good job of being able to be ourselves with cameras, but that is not for everyone. And it's also, there are some things that that's why there's a fantasy suite night. There's like, there's certain moments that really, you can be yourself fully.
Yeah.
But not like the same emotions, the same conversations you would actually probably normally have.
No, I think about that all the time because I'm like, in my fantasy suite with Sean, like we just got hammered. Like we were like, this is so weird. And like we'd been drinking all day. So we just like kept it going. And then we like both passed out. And we're like, oh, we really used our time wisely there. Let's go get engaged. Like it's such a weird world. So that's why it's like when you say, can you find someone? It's like, as you know, you can, but it's just, what kind of foundation are you building off of for a solid relationship?
I just think it's important to talk about because I think all these dating shows, like they're so entertaining to watch. And then it can kind of people can kind of think, oh, like I just love that relationship, even if it's a beautiful one. Like I don't think anybody felt that way about like my relationship with the guy that I picked, but maybe like with Tyler or something, like be like, oh my gosh, they're just like goals. And it's like, it's really not like the relationship that I feel like I'm in now and the work that we've had to even do to like get through all those obstacles. Like that is really what love is. It's not the love that's on that show. I think that the work that the people who have stayed together that they've done after the cameras shut off, I think that's like their love story, actually.
I agree. I agree completely. I mean, it's like social media. It's like any kind of platform that we're watching where 90% of it is like for show. And even if those moments are real, it's still the highlights. And like there's so many things like that. And The Bachelor is just like perfect example. We're just seeing the highlights and what they want to show, and like it's not real. I even had somebody on my podcast talk about, because I get so nervous for the butterfly feeling to go away, and she was like, that's your like anxiety tissue eating like flesh in there, that it's not like you would die if you went off the butterfly feeling for life. That's not love. That's just like a euphoric state that the next stage of like reality is what love is. And then it's a choice. And I was like, I don't like that.
I mean, that has been one of the biggest things I've worked on, because I had to be like really honest. Like, I don't think I really know what love is, because
I feel that.
It's like, even like my parents' relationship, like I love them so much, but I don't think that was the love that I wanted. And like she made me write down like, what has love like actually looked like to you? And it's been like, you know, arguing, saying mean things to each other. Like that is what I've thought. And so sometimes like I recreated those feelings that I had. Maybe it wasn't the same, obviously, like experience of my mom and dad, but that's where you first discover love is through your parents. But the feeling that I felt, I would try to find that other relationships. And it was so crazy going through the relationships and being like, oh my gosh, that's what that was. But they were always intense. And I loved that feeling because it felt familiar.
Yeah.
But it almost, I also had to grieve that the butterfly feelings aren't always like good.
Right.
And you're like, but that's the cool part.
Right. Because I mean, I think what matters the most is respect. Like if you respect somebody, then love can be a choice. Totally. I think once you lose respect in a relationship, it's done.
Yeah.
And I know from experience, like it's just that is a foundation, is respect. And
because respect, I think, breeds resentment. And I really don't think you can go back from resentment.
And I've had a lot of that in my past, a lot of resentment. And now I'm like, that's my goal in the next relationship, is to mend those little rips as along the way, instead of like, I think my therapist calls it like repairing the rips. Like don't let them grow and get bigger and then resent them. Work through those little rips all the time, so that you constantly have that respect for one another and that you want to work through it, instead of being like, oh, I'm going to ignore that problem and just letting it build, or letting something go and not like actually getting through the problem. And I'm thinking about how I saw my parents growing up, and there was just like, it was a friendship. And I think they would have arguments once in a while, but like, I don't really remember them being like argumentative all the time. But what I saw was complacency. And what I saw was my mom and my dad thinking maybe she's too much. And it kind of felt like he fell out of love with her. So then I'm like, well, I'm like my mom. So every guy's just going to fall out of love with me. So I'm constantly waiting for the shoe to drop. And I'm constantly like expecting that to happen after the butterflies go away. Yeah. And then I cause my own problems for myself. But I mean, I'm able to look back at relationships now and be like, oh, I did, like, I can have some accountability there.
1000%. Same.
But I'm also like, but that doesn't mean like, I can't handle just being the only one. But I can look back now and go, I see where we went wrong. And it's two people
Mm-hmm.
that didn't do the right things.
But also sometimes I think you like choose that it like doesn't excuse like the thing they need to work on, but we sometimes like I think subconsciously choose that thing, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
That they need to work on. That's also obviously like clashing the relationship and making it hard. But I think it's just being aware of like, oh, that's something that I'm just like putting myself in that situation. Like, why am I doing that?
Over and over again.
And then it feels really abnormal when you're like, when you choose something different, I think. I know from experience, like it's been like, oh, like I've really chosen this relationship because naturally I'm like trying to find like the biggest fire out there. And I'm like, oh, that one. I'm going straight in.
Yeah.
Light me up.
I'm going to go head first into that one.
Yeah.
No dipping the toes there.
So you're back in the dating game. Don't really want to call it a game, but you know.
It's a scene.
It's a scene. Dating scene. I'm interested to know, like, what is something from your past relationships that you're like, you know, I really want to have that. That's something that I really respected about this person or the type of relationship that we had that you're looking for. And then what is one thing that you want to be different in your relationship that you didn't really know that you needed?
Yeah. Great questions. Something I'm taking from other relationships into the next one would probably be accountability. Like, I don't think I was really good at taking accountability before in relationships. And I think I truly thought I was right in so many things. I'd be like, I can't believe they think they're right. Like, I'm obviously right. And I need to do a lot of like, almost like reflecting back on times where I'm like, why couldn't I just surrender to that moment and be like, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And I think I need to take some accountability, even for mistakes that I've made in other relationships. I think I want to go into this next one and go, okay, it's okay to be wrong. And it's okay to not like, I always, if something makes me uncomfortable and I feel like I'm in trouble, I avoid it. I'm like, I don't want to deal with it. Like, if I'm doing something wrong, I'll fix it. Fine. Moving on. Like, I don't want to sit with that being uncomfortable.
Or to have them like confront you about it.
No, I don't like that.
Okay.
I feel like I don't like when I am hurting someone or doing something wrong. So I pretend it's not happening. And I've done this since a little kid. This is my strategy. I avoid at all costs to feel, I don't want to feel wrong or uncomfortable. And I'll never forget, it was one of my first memories. I think I was 3. And there was a tornado in where I grew up, and it was terrible, like ripping through the city. And Mom said I laid there, and I remember going, I'm asleep. It's not happening. I'm asleep. And I would do that. I got hepatitis when I was 5 years old, and I pretended it wasn't happening. And I just would sleep, and I would just pretend it's not happening. And I do this thing where instead of, and I can get uncomfortable all day long with certain kinds of deep conversation or like helping other people with their problems or like even self-reflection, but it's when I feel like I'm doing something wrong or hurting somebody or and
you don't fully know how to change it.
I am like, nope, it's not happening. And my therapist told me this other day, she goes, you've never built that muscle like to hold space for feeling like uncomfortable. And she goes, so you've just like avoided, and your parents have always just fixed things for you, and you don't have that coping skill to just sit in the uncomfortable and be like, I was wrong, and like, this isn't okay.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, I have to, in that next relationship I get in, I need to not have that same strategy and try and like shift something in my brain.
That's so interesting, because I feel like I go shame. Like I feel it fully.
Yeah.
And I'm like my thing that Adam gets so mad about. I'll be like, are you mad at me? What did I do?
Oh, really?
And I like fully am just like, because I like innately think there's something wrong with me. Like that's been like something. I'm reading this book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. I'm learning how to like really build that up, because I've had like self-confidence when like things are going great in my life. I can like be like, totally. Oh gosh, like, or I'm getting validation. But like the self-esteem part has been, it's been a really interesting, like, it's taken me so long to read it because I feel like it's just so many words and information that I'm like having to process.
Yeah.
But I go into like shame and I let that like buckle me down and I can't fully like get out of it. So actually you did build a coping mechanism so that you didn't like let the shame like bog you down so you could keep going.
Yeah.
But I guess there is like a middle ground of being able to like be like, guilt. I guess guilt is what it can be like a very helpful thing.
I hate guilt.
It's awful. But I think if you like, I just read this in my book, actually. They're like, if you can just like be able to be like, didn't do that right. I actually don't even know how to do it right now. But like, I know, like I'm owning it. Like this isn't
That's
right.
what I need to do.
It's tough and it can feel bad. And for me, I go into like, sometimes I go teeter into like, oh, that means I'm bad.
Yeah. Well, I also go into competitive mode.
Okay. So like how?
Like,
You'll try to find the thing that's actually wrong with them?
Yes. Or I'll go, well, I need to win. So how do I get there? How do I win either this conversation or this, like anything in life? And then I start comparing myself to other people because I'm being competitive and I need to be on top. And that's my therapist was like, tell me about your dancing life growing up. Like, I danced 6 days a week. I needed to be the best. I worked my ass off to get there. And if I wasn't, my mom was never like, and bless her, she was just being such a sweetheart, but she was like, I think you should have won. You should have won. It was better than that. And nobody taught me that like not being on top is okay.
Yes. I mean, I'm interested in what you think about like dance. Like what is when you think back on that time, because I also danced. And like I talked to my mom about it recently because my reoccurring dreams are about dance.
Same.
And like the scary, horrible ones.
Yeah.
And I finally was like, Mom, because I actually, this sounds so bad, but like every day I was like, felt bad about myself because of dance. Like I would go to school and I would be like, I don't want to go here because I know I'm not going to feel good enough. Like I'm never going to feel good enough. And I would say, I don't want to do this. My mom would be like, you're going to dance.
Yeah.
And
you're
Natalie,
going to dance.
Natalie knows because we grew up together. Like she's like, get over it.
Yeah.
You love to perform because I did love that.
Yes, same.
But the dance studio culture was so intense. Like I don't know. I feel like I will be one of those. If I have a daughter and she wants to dance, it's not that I'm not going to allow her to dance, but I feel like I will be a hawk and make sure that the things that were said and the conversations and the comparing that was happening in that studio.
It's where my body dysmorphia started.
Same.
Oh.
I remember, I talk about this in my book. The girls, we would stand at the mirror and one of the girls would be like, the perfect legs has 3 holes. And she was like, I have 1, 2, 3. And everybody stood there and I didn't have the holes in my legs.
Yeah.
I had like the one by my calves or something. And I was like, oh my gosh. And
the same thing.
Y'all did the same thing?
I've talked about this on my podcast.
Y'all did the leg thing?
Not the leg thing specifically, but kind of like we would all stand in front of the mirror and we would pick whose body parts we would put together to make the perfect body. And I remember them not picking anything on my body in one class. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then I remember my ballet teacher hearing that and telling me, no, you have the perfect body for a ballerina because you have to look unhealthy. So then I got confused of my body looking unhealthy, but then I wanted this. And we would all pinch fat in the mirror and like, it would just line up and our teachers would just let us do it.
I know. It's so bizarre. And then just like, I think for me, like I needed extra help. And I think I actually Dancing with the Stars, I wonder, it kind of helped me in a way. It kind of reframed the way that I thought of myself as a dancer.
Me too.
But when I first started, like Alan would tell me to do something and I could not move my feet because I was scared of messing up.
Yeah.
Because I remember like in dance, we had like a triple turn or something and we weren't all hitting it and we had to all stand up and everybody had to go one by one. And when you did it right, you could sit down.
God, we did that too.
Why did you do that? That's so messed up.
We did that
and
too.
I remember being like one of like the last one and it just having to keep going again and again and everybody waiting on me. And it was horrible.
And that's when you get in your head and don't do the turn.
And then you don't do the turn.
Oh my gosh. That's like, those are my nightmares.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I feel the same way. Like I'll never forget my ballet teacher making us, we had point shoes and usually you can put like stuff in your toes and lamb's wool and like tape them up and everything. We weren't allowed to wear anything. And we had to build up blisters and we were just all bleeding along the floor going through trying to like strengthen our toes and crying and being like, and we would just have to do it. Like, that's why I feel like we probably were so good on Dancing with the Stars, because we're like, well, we'll do anything. Like, just get there. And
yeah. Like, it wasn't really that big of a deal that, like, I feel like our partners are more like intense.
Yeah.
It was hard, but because it was like re-traumatizing me.
Yeah.
But they did really strengthen me to like realize that I could do something.
Same.
And I didn't ever have that, or like that extreme like care and like making sure I got it was something that I don't feel like I ever experienced. And so it actually made me realize like that I could go out there and do a dance in front of millions of people when I was so scared to like do a solo by myself in front of like 10 other little girls.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I still like sometimes don't think I can dance, but it was such a big help for me. I wonder, was that the same thing for you? Like, how did you feel as a dancer before going in and then after?
It was a whole roller coaster, because I was like, oh, I'm going to pick up choreography so fast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've got rhythm and I can do this. And then I got in there and I was humbled very quickly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't do it. And then by the end, I remember people asking like, what is something you learned about yourself? And I was like, I actually think of myself as a dancer now. Like, my whole life, I worked so hard.
Because you danced like even
I thought that's what I was going to do with,
after, right?
I thought that was going to be my whole career.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
I got a dance scholarship. It's why I moved to Vancouver. I danced with a company. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. It is my passion. It is my dream. And then I followed a hockey player in Canada to wherever he needed to go. And I completely dumped my career. And I didn't feel like I was good enough in the dance world to make it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I'm not good enough. I wasn't getting the auditions. I wasn't getting where I wanted to go. So I'll just follow this other guy and his dreams, and then quickly lost myself. So then getting on Dancing with the Stars and winning, I was like, that's like, this is so Canadian of me to talk about dating a hockey player. And now I'm going to use this. But to me, I'm like, that's like somebody eating, sleeping, breathing hockey and wanting to make it into the NHL, and then being told they're not good enough, and then they completely lose their dream, and then at the age of like 35 getting to win the Stanley Cup. Like, that is like, it was like the coolest, most full circle moment for me ever. And I was like, I am a dancer. Like, I was like, my whole life I've been waiting for this feeling and I've got it. And I felt so strong after.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, I was so fragile and insecure in the dance world before, and then I came out of that and I was like, I can do anything.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't have that full experience. I was like,
well, you were also coming out of, I was like, some trauma. I was in a very good place going to Dancing with the Stars.
I was like, is this a hoax?
Yeah.
What's going on? This doesn't actually feel good. And I'm not quite sure if I still think I can dance, but I just won. So what's going on?
Well, I mean, I came out of it. I was on this high, and then I came home and I was like, well, what's next?
It's really tough. Cause like, that's like, you work so
highs.
hard for so long, and then it's like you get this thing, and then it's like,
yeah, you're like,
I gotta find something else to hit the
God, yes.
give me the what would I like the validation.
Yes. No,
yeah.
I need it's so bad. And I'm like, I keep hounding Rob Mills, being like, so Dancing with the Stars All-Star season, when is it?
Same. I'm like
ready.
Well, people have asked me about it, and I'm like, I just think I would love to do it for like being in a better place. Like you,
totally.
like I think we talked about that. Like you'd had some time away and was able to.
I could not imagine going into Dancing with the Stars after being the Bachelor.
Yeah.
I could not. I don't think I physically, mentally, emotionally, like in any way could do it.
Yeah.
So the fact that you did it and won after that is insane.
Well, and then we had a full mental breakdown after.
Well, no kidding.
An actual
anyone
full
would.
force
That's
thing.
like, no, that's not human.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a lot.
What I love about you too is that anything you do, you make sure that you learn from it. Like, you will research, you will do your reading, you will journal, you will do everything.
Yeah.
You will like fully immerse yourself into something to learn and grow from it, which is so cool.
Totally. Well, I feel like you're also really self-aware, and I feel like it can be really easy for me to disassociate in those situations, and that's what happens a lot while I'm in it.
Yes.
And then after, I'm like, okay, why do I keep doing that?
Yeah. Well, because
why do I do that?
I'll never forget coming out of the show and being like, it was overwhelming. My face was on like every magazine, and it was just like, you go from being this little small town person to this. And I remember going, you wanted this and this does not feel good. Remember this
Yes.
feeling. It does not feel good. You don't, even though you're on the top right now, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Don't strive for this feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the bottom again and you go,
I think I
use
want that
again.
Yeah, I feel like for me recently, I think I always thought, and I actually heard you talk about this on a podcast, like I always thought I was like made for something big. I didn't know
Yeah.
exactly what that was. And then I think it all got to me a lot. And then I've kind of shrunk a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to work on that to be able to like fully be myself again. Even like on social media, I feel like, I mean, I had a really hard time with just backlash and just also making my own mistakes, but not really being able to handle that much eyeballs and criticism. And I feel like you, well, I know it's been like really tough, but you've still been able to be like super vulnerable through it all.
Yeah.
How do you do that with like all the like criticism that you have received?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Like, I do think it's just like my DNA to just continue to push through and be who I am. Like, I don't think I'm capable of faking things. Like, so when I am feeling dark or sad, like I do share it. And some people are like, why are you crying out for attention?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm trying to just be what's real. Like I crave people being a little more real on social media. So I try and show up on in everything I do. I try and show up as someone that I wanted to look up to growing up and like while staying true to myself.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I would have liked to see people being a little more real on social media and like talking about anxiety or mental health or showing the dark times. Like I would have looked up to that. And so I try and be that, but then I have to dance with that fine line of like, am I doing this to like, do I need to take this as a private moment and have this to myself? And because sometimes I share too much. And even somebody like, oh my God, I did something so stupid the other night. I saw something on my For You page and I was
the damn For You page.
So angry because I've done such a good job at if anyone listens to my podcast, they know I call it shopping for pain. So if you're like going and you know this is going to hurt your feelings, but you just keep, and then you read the comments, you're just shopping for pain. Don't do it. And I went shopping the other night and I was so hurt because it was two people I considered friends, and another person who doesn't matter. And I was just like, they're all sitting around in a circle talking about me and like, it was giving mean girl energy from three men. And I was just like, what are you guys doing? And I got so mad and I like commented and I read the comments. And then 3 hours later, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, don't delete it. I like went on. And I'm just like, oh, you know, Bachelor Nation Scoop has already got the screenshots. When they didn't. And I just went and deleted everything because I'm like, I react with emotion so often. And people see that as messy, which I'm sure you can relate to. Like people always think I'm this hot mess. And I'm like, but I'm being human and that's just who I am. I'm not being like, I actually have my shit together and I know what I'm doing and I'm like doing all the right steps and I do therapy and spiritual coaching and I meditate and I manifest and I visualize and I try and be a good person. And like, I'm also showing up and you can call it messy, but like to me it's real. And I think we need more of that in the world. And it's just so interesting to me that is like a shock to people.
Yeah. Cause I feel like, well, it kind of goes back to how we were talking about how we deal with when things are happening to us or for us or whatever. Like you kind of like stand up and will like speak for yourself, and I can kind of like
I protest.
So I like, instead of when I'm in a bad place or something, I just don't show up at all, which is also not cool because I can't fake it either.
Right.
So it's like, I can't fake this. And if I go on here for like 2 months, y'all are going to be like, like Hannah needs help. What's going on?
So
I
wish
like,
I could take a knee like that.
I'm just no, but it's actually, it's not, I do that in my relationships. Like that's not just for like online. Like I do that. I ghost and pull away from everyone. I don't like that about myself. I need to be able to like ask for help and be like, hey, like I'm actually not doing great, and be able to give myself grace.
Yeah.
And have people around me that actually, I know I have people around me that would like give me grace.
Totally.
But I think it's hard for people to see somebody like just like living vulnerably and actually showcasing that, because there's a lot of people who are afraid to even do that for themselves. So when they see it in somebody else, it can be like really triggering.
That's what I'm learning. I see so many quotes. That's usually what my For You page is quotes about like, your light will make people uncomfortable. Like it'll, what they see in you is, and like if they want that, that's going to create like a trigger in them.
Yes.
And I'm trying to like accept that, because I do the same thing. If I'm triggered by something, I'm upset about it, I'm angry, instead of looking at what's inside and what's going on right here.
Yeah.
I do the avoid thing. I get competitive.
Yes.
And it's just so interesting how I can show up in so many different ways, where like I can go on social media and I want justice and I want to protest. But then in like, and that's if it's like strangers mad at me on the internet. If it's somebody I care about and love, I like get uncomfortable and I freeze and I avoid. Like it's so I show up differently in so many different ways. But that's just, I feel like I'm just trying to exist as a human in like the best way I can do.
So I think I've talked about this quote the last 3 podcasts, but I really don't care, because I feel like this is such a good quote for you that my therapist said. And because I've like stopped, like I think why people really resonated with me is I could do that. I could just like speak my truth, and I can to an extent, but I've like got a little bit more like closed off. And I'm just like, I don't want to deal with that. People who know me, and I'm just going to live with that. But I would love to be able, and I'm going to be able to be more opinionated. Because that was all like a self-esteem thing of like, my opinion doesn't matter, whatever.
Right.
But one thing my therapist said that I feel like is kind of what you really like live is you can't stand out and fit in at the same time.
I love that.
And
I love that so much.
Isn't that so
that's
good?
My next tattoo. Yeah. I literally just got high vibrations tattooed on me, because I'm like, I'm trying to live
I see the
here.
high vibes.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's the high vibes. It's the high vibe tribe. Whoever wants in, you're in.
I love it. No, I think that's
a
important.
great quote.
But like if you're living authentically, like there's going to be a lot of people who just like don't like that, because we're kind of conditioned to feel like we have to belong.
Yeah.
But to do that, you're just assimilating to everybody else. But everybody's doing that. So the people who aren't.
It's so true. And now actually, now that I think about it, you asked like, how do you stay doing this and showing up like that? And when I said it's in my DNA, it actually that is one thing I'm like so grateful for my parents and my family for. They let me fly my freak flag all the time. Like I was allowed to, I was celebrated for being truly who I was until I went on TV. Like all of my whole family was just like, you're a bit of an odd bird. Like you're unique, you're outspoken, you're like quirky, you're doing that. And they loved me for it. And then my friends, I surrounded myself with people that were kind of like that too. And that loved me for it. So then going on TV, all of a sudden you're hated for being who you are. And it's so confusing.
Yeah.
But that's true. Cause I'm like, well, I feel like I stand out, and that might upset people.
Yeah. But it also like allows other people to feel like, I can do that too.
Well, that's
like I can stand out. I'll survive it.
My podcast, like that's when I first started, I was like, I want everybody to listen to just be like, oh, I can be weird, or I can be shy, or I can be loud, or I can be quiet, but that's who I am. Like I really want people to feel empowered to just like that is such a good feeling when you can stay in that. And that's what I think is high vibes too. Like even if
1000%,
even if I show up depressed on Instagram and like can realize like, hey, this is a low vibrational way of thinking. Let's get out of it. Like, what can we do? Like to me, that's just like being true. And that's
to know you can.
Yeah.
And to actually be able to be like able to call it out is such high vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Like I think that's so true. And like you're able to not everyone's going to live on a high vibration their whole life. That's silly. You feel lows to feel the highs. You feel highs to feel the lows.
Not even Jesus did.
Not even Jesus did. Right?
He felt low too. Yeah. So
right.
Yeah. Is there something that you have of like you're like, I definitely want this in my next relationship as I'm dating?
I just want someone who's real. I just want a real human.
Yeah.
I know that seems like the bar must be in hell. But like I just want somebody who is just so comfortable in their own skin, who wants to make an impact in the world, who wants to like have deep thoughts and conversations and like make an impact. I'm like so sick of this, like, let's try and get some headlines for Us Weekly. Like this person said to me, I want to be on the cover of Time magazine for making an impact. I don't want to be on the cover of Us Weekly. Like, and I'm like, that is hot.
Yeah, that is. Well, I think that's hard for a lot of people. It's kind of going back to like, I don't know if all of us had like parents or people who really showed us that it's okay to be like fully authentically yourself.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that, it's really hard to really be taught that because you have to do a lot of work. So I think it's like you want to find somebody that's like doing the work on themselves and like
I will take
work.
someone who's divorced, who has been through some shit, who's like in their 40s. Like I would like that.
Has seen the like
their eyes have seen some stuff.
Yeah.
And they've like been there and they see the true meaning of life and they can like even help me get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's so important.
People grow up like getting celebrated for not being who, like, you know, their achievements, what they got in school, how they showed up as an athlete. Like there's so many people who are rewarded in that way in life. And so of course you're conditioned to believe that.
And then also like tag on, if you're like in the public eye, like what's being celebrated. Sometimes you'll lean into that.
Totally.
And then not actually be fully yourself because you kind of like have lost that. And then how do you don't even know how to be yourself.
Because you're like, I see what's working on social media. So I'm going to stick to that. But then you lose yourself.
And then you lose yourself and then you can't even like attach to people at all.
All of a sudden you're not aligning with the right people, like business is not going to be good. I truly believe that like as soon as you start going the way you think you should, like, oh, I see them winning or I see them getting this.
Though.
I teeter-totter all the time. I could easily go down that slippery slope, but I try so hard to just stay on my own path of what I'm doing. And it's so hard.
It's so hard, especially honestly, like in where we came from. I feel like it can be just like so competitive and everybody just like talks about each other.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always distanced myself from that. But like, how do you like kind of how you said you were like doom scrolling the other night and you when you see somebody that like you're somewhat in a group with talking about you in ways, like how do you handle that?
Well, this is my problem. And this is literally what I talked about in therapy. So it was like,
I do what I do. I just am like, I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm just going. And then I isolate myself, which then people think I'm a bitch, but I'm just like,
but that's healthy.
To
me, that's what I would strive to do. I literally go dark and competitive, and
you're like, I'm
like,
going
you're
to
saying this about me. I've got 10 times worse things on you. I'm going to say them like that. I don't do it, but that's where my brain goes.
Yeah.
And so when I see these people talking about me, and I'm like, what are you doing? I immediately want to protest. That's just how instead of being like, oh, because this is what my therapist. We should play a drinking game every time I say my therapist.
My therapist, yeah.
But my therapist was literally like, she goes, you protest. She goes, but what is protest actually saying? Like, what are you actually feeling when you're protesting? And I sat there I couldn't think of it. I'm like, you're gonna have to tell me. I don't know. She goes, it's just not okay. What they're doing is not okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
And it hurts you.
It hurts you. It doesn't make you feel good. And I don't like being sad. And like, I'll feel my sadness in other ways, but I don't like when people are I feel icky. When I feel icky, I just get angry instead of being like, this isn't okay with me.
Yeah.
And I need to just work on being like, that's just not okay. And that's not the vibration I want to be on. And like, good for you, but it's not for me. Like, that's where I need to get to.
Yeah. You're going to get there.
I'm like fired up talking about it. I'm like, yeah, totally.
Okay. Last thing I want to talk about. You kind of talked about why you started your podcast and what you love about it, but you are going on tour.
Yes. Oh
and I think I'm going to be on.
I was like, are we allowed to say it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know when this is coming out.
Yeah, when is this coming out?
Or when are you announcing it?
I don't know.
Okay,
I was
well-
making sure you were like pumped and we're feeling good about
No,
this.
yeah, we're totally going. But yeah,
Well,
I'm
we can
going.
announce it here.
Yeah,
You're coming
We're
to
going on
Kansas
tour.
City. You're coming on tour with me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too.
You were like my number one. I was like, let's just like get her. Let's get Hannah. I
Well-
feel like people would love to see us together on a stage.
I'm
We'll do
so
a
pumped
dance.
about it. Yeah, let's do it.
We come out like fully tango onto stage.
That would be really fun.
We should.
Let's do it.
We should.
What can people expect on these
Oh,
live shows? 'Cause I've never done a live show and I've never been to like a podcast live show. So what is that?
Okay, it is my favorite thing to do because sometimes I forget who I'm even talking to when it's just a microphone in front of me at
Yeah.
all times and I don't see who's listening. So to be able to like connect with people, I call them vinos. With if
I
you're an
love
off
it.
the vine listener,
Yeah.
you're a vino. And I honestly am like, I'm so lucky to have these kinds of women that listen to me. Everyone is so fun, so sweet, so kind, so supportive. Everyone's just like, people will go on my Facebook group and be like, who's going to this show? And they'll make friends and go to the show together.
Oh, I love
Like it feels like a
that.
very, very like Z list of Taylor Swift vibes where it's like the friendship bracelets and people like,
Yeah.
I could never compare myself to Taylor Swift, but
No, you
if I-
can.
on like I'm like not even Craigslist Taylor. Like I'm like what like Dollar Tree Taylor. I don't know, but I feel like it's just an experience. I feel like people
Mhm.
come, they leave either like I want everyone to leave on a high vibration is what I'm saying.
I think we should have high vibe shirts
Yeah,
or
we should.
something.
We're making shirts. We're making shirts. We're gonna dance. We're gonna tango. We're gonna high vibe. We're gonna make t-shirts.
Everybody
I
be
crowd
there.
surf sometimes.
That'd be fun.
I crowd surf. I don't know how I trust these people so much, but I do.
Because they're vinos.
Yeah, they've got my back. Literally.
Well, we just need to like make sure they haven't drank too much Spade and Sparrows, but
No, they
just
do.
enough. Just
Yeah,
enough.
just enough.
Where they're fun.
That's-
And they're like all game
Yes.
for
Well, every venue that we're
letting
going
us fly
to,
through the air.
yes, every
Yeah.
venue that we're going to is selling Spade and Sparrows,
I love it.
and we are
Which is
gonna like.
Kaitlyn's wine.
it's my
It's
wine.
so delicious.
It's quite
The
good.
rosé is my favorite.
It's
it's
quite.
great.
It's quite good. It truly is the only wine I drink. Like people ask me, "What's your go-to red?" I'm like, I don't even have one anymore. I
Yeah.
just drink Spade and Sparrows. Like
Which is a good sign.
It's a great
I'm glad that you like your product.
I love it. I love it. And one of my favorite things to do is give it to people who are wine snobs because they're like, what? It's actually really good. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
I have full confidence in my wine. But yeah, we're going to different cities. It's on KaitlynBristowe.com to get tickets. Iowa's sold out. Ohio's almost sold out. We're going to sell it the second we announce you're coming.
I was like, come on, guys. Better tomorrow, people. I don't have a name for you guys. Sorry.
your BTs.
BTs. Let's get all together in Kansas City. It's gonna be awesome.
BTs with the high Vs. There you go.
There we go. You got it. That's the shirt.
But yeah, I just interview people and we have so much fun. We play games, crowd interaction. There's wine, there's dancing. I usually have a DJ. It's pretty
so
fun. Yeah.
Well, I'm really pumped. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm
It's gonna
so
be
happy
great.
you're coming.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we got to finally do this.
Me
Thank
too.
you so much for coming on Better Tomorrow. I'm so thankful to have you in my life. I feel like
So
you've
thankful.
really helped me just navigate all the craziness that comes after throwing your whole life into the public eye.
Sometimes I
And
feel like I did this to like be a champion for other people that come up because
you can
when-
do this.
Well, when JoJo came, I was like, my competitive side came out. I was like, oh my God, people are calling her the better Kaitlyn, the hotter Kaitlyn, and her numbers were better. And that was when I first was like, you need to do something about this. Don't
Yeah.
get competitive, champion. And so I started doing blogs for her season and like doing stuff on social media. And it felt so good.
yeah.
And I went, oh, now I'm just more competitive with men.
That's
Sorry, I
who-
totally interrupted your
Yeah,
whole spiel.
No, I love it. I love it.
I
So
love
thank you. We love you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the episode. Better Tomorrow is produced by me, Hannah Brown, and Legos Creative. Our show is recorded, engineered, and edited by the Legos Creative team. Remember to follow Better Tomorrow wherever you get your podcast so you don't miss the next episode. And don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps and shows your support. You can follow me on socials at Hannah Brown, and you can stay updated on all things Better Tomorrow on our Instagram at Better Tomorrow and our TikTok Better Tomorrow podcast.